Make no mistake, being an entrepreneur is tough. You're trying to build a business, manage a team, deliver your product or service, and of course, make more money, all while trying to eat healthy and get to the gym, raise your kids, and maybe even make it to date night more than twice a year. So, when hustling harder doesn't work for you, how do you find the time, energy, and skills to build the business you want while being the parent and partner your family deserves? My name is Nick Murphy, and this is the Parentpreneur Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back. And I'm really excited to introduce you to our next guest. Teresa is a native Texan, proud Longhorn, and longtime Austinite. She's a high-impact leadership speaker, strategist, coach, and founder of the Daringly Great Leadership, working with purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are making big and bold moves to change the world through their businesses without sacrificing their family first, freedom, lifestyles. Can we say alignment? Amen. Teresa, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you. We connected recently. Before we get started, just kind of walk us through a little bit about how you fell into this kind of path or journey and what you've done in your career up to this point.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I always love to, look back on these last 25, 30 years and go, oh my gosh, wow, I've actually made and come full circle. And what I mean by that is that, when I first started, early career, I actually had dipped into the advertising world where they like to eat their young for lunch. And then for about 10 years, I was like, no, I want to do something that's aligned with me. And I was very purpose driven. I did a lot of relief work. I did a lot of nonprofit work. I worked with the homeless, etc. And of course, bills and things came up. And so I moved into slowly into government. And then I started working larger nonprofits. I went to graduate school and started consulting with corporate executives. And, by that point in time, I had such a breadth of experience, and what my concerns and specialty were had really everything to do with helping leaders really step to that next level, and also change management, org structure. And so I'd done a master's degree in leadership and management, really focusing on strategic organizational development. And yeah, so that's where I had been for the last 10 years. That led me into tech startup as well. And it was funny because, in the last several years, I've been going global, consulting I had my own consulting practice. I've been working in and out of house with these major organizations like the UN, and thinking wow, I've gotten it. I'm doing the thing that's purpose aligned, and really making good in the world. And this is probably going to hit home for most of y'all, is that with all of that success, I had also been doing it because it was for my family. I was trying to provide my family, and we support our parents-in-law, and we're trying to do the best we can for them, and all of this was really for family. And yet I found myself crushed one day on the floor, having a huge argument with my husband, and we had realized just how miserable we were. We had become workaholics, thinking that we're doing the right thing by our families, going for the career, doing the thing that everybody says you're supposed to do, keep climbing the ladder. And we barely saw each other, and we were turning into different people. And I realized that I had come out of alignment with purpose and living a life that was truly to live life, not live to work, or work to live, just to live. And so I burned it all down about a couple of years ago, and I restarted everything and put my family first, and said, no, my work and my business is going to be designed around my life, and make sure that my family is first. And so that's how I've come to it. It's like a culmination of everything I have learned, experienced, and really trying to promote others who are impact-driven, purpose-driven, but also putting their freedom and their family lifestyle first.
I love it. That is why we clicked when we connected, and it's a big reason why you're here. It strikes me, just listening to your background, that when you're working with nonprofits and governments and for-profits and in different industries, there might be a lot of different org structures that you've experienced, and there might not be a one-size-fits-all thing. There are a lot of different ideologies on how to create an org structure, especially for personal brand entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, parentpreneurs like us. One thing we agree on, flat out, is that having a team is critically important to any kind of significant business. Why is having a team so important for anybody who's still on the fence about, I don't know that I really need to do this whole hiring thing, let alone an org chart?
Right. Well, I mean, I will say that if you really want to get to the place where you are impacting there are some who are saying like, I just want to build a business that's going to be supportive for my family, or I want to build a business that's truly out there for impact. Well, if you're really in it to support your family, to be present with your family, or if you're there to make the kind of impact, impacting millions, you really cannot do it alone. And think about it from a leverage standpoint, which is that, many hands can do a lot of work, and you may be the most brilliant, most amazing multitasker in the world that's able to wear 14 hats and do all the things with incredible efficiency. But that incredible efficiency is actually not very productive, because every time that you are switching, I guess you can say, switching modes or tasks, you're reducing your productivity by 30%. Every time you're thinking about, trying to handle all of those things, one person is actually not meant to be doing all of those things, and oftentimes pours over into your family time, where you might be on your phone doing your social media or responding to an email when you're supposed to be present with your family, or if you're trying to really reach the millions, like you doing one speaker gig per quarter is probably oftentimes limited by the fact that you don't have time to drum up more speaking opportunities. I'm just giving examples. And so in the idea of leverage, and the idea of like, what's the best way to spend your time and really be in integrity with what you say are your priorities, having a team absolutely is the way to go. And if you think about just even from a financial standpoint, if you say, like, let's say that you want to be a CEO and you're going to give yourself a $200,000 or $300,000 salary, divide that with a work week, versus how much you're actually paying yourself income-wise in a work week when you're trying to do it all yourself, when you're probably putting in 60 to 80 hours of work doing these $10 tasks. You're really actually not making the best business choice. So anyways, lots of ways to look at it, but team is paramount to having the kind of business that you're saying you want to create, and also having the level of impact you say you want.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, I'm of the belief that it's almost never too early. I don't know that it is too early to hire somebody to take something off your plate, a part-time virtual assistant. Like, there are things that we could get off our plate that are not the best use of our time if we're serious about growing a company, or if we're serious about getting our message out. Like, this is a lot of video, guys. Like, you think I'm editing this? Like, I'm not.
Right, exactly.
One, I don't know how. Two, I wouldn't be good at it. And three, it's not the greatest use of my time. It's not my skill set. But Teresa, when we think about an org chart, I think that word sounds very formal. And so I know there's a lot of early stage parentpreneurs in the audience who are like, well, I'm sort of coming around on this VA thing, but like, why do I need to think about an org chart? How should we think about an org chart, both when we're starting out, and then how much, forward vision do we need to think about what kind of business we want to build? So how should we do that? Can it start with just like, here's my part-time VA and I'll figure it out later? Or what's the benefit of actually mapping out a visionary kind of org chart early on in your business?
I love that. Yeah. I always agree. I agree. It's never too early to start hiring. In fact, like, that's actually one of the biggest reasons why startups grow so quickly, is because they invest in people so early on. And you understand that people are not just somebody to take something off your plate, but is an actual resource that's going to help multiply like what you're actually putting in. And think of it like an investor, right? So if we're thinking about investing in a portfolio, when you're thinking about retirement, say, which many people might have already started doing financial planning, when you're doing that, you're not just like, okay, well, I have a bank account now, or I just moved to money market, or I might think about, what to do with my IRA. No, you actually, when you're sitting down to do financial planning, you're thinking about things with the end in mind. So very Stephen Covey. And so think about and start planning things with the end in mind. Like, what does it look like? What does done look like in your business and the way that you're going to impact? And what does done look like in terms of how your life looks? What does done look like when it comes to the way your customers, your clients, how they are actually being served, and start to build an organizational chart around that. And now I know people get, a little bit stressed because they're like, well, I don't have the money for that yet. Or like, I don't want to get that big, or, and like, really the organizational chart is not really for to put pressure on you to like have to make more and be more responsible. It's not, don't think of it that way. Think of it as as what are you building? Like, where are you going with your organization? And how can you ensure that you're creating the best quality life with the business that supports that life and the best quality customer service that you can provide that makes sense? And I don't know, I always like to start with like a simple org chart. And the simple org chart follows a customer journey. In my mind, this is how I do it. And if you don't, know like how this is all working, you're still kind of like fly by the seat of the pants, you can still do it. And it's how they find you, how you serve them, and then what happens post that service period. So I call that acquisition, fulfillment, and then really loyalty or retention. And so you can start building an org chart around that. So for example, acquisition can be like, how are you doing the marketing and the sales, and who's going to be involved in that? Fulfillment is like customer service. So you might be thinking, I might need a community manager for my Facebook group. So that's very fulfillment oriented. Or who's going to help me edit my videos for my course, right? And start putting it into Kajabi or things like that. And retention is, that's a more mature version of like an organization, but it costs less to keep a customer than to acquire a new one. So it's probably good to start thinking about who's going to be in charge of that. And then there's the wrapper of like, how's this whole thing going to be running all together, right? So like very operations oriented. So even just like, if you think about it, and you may not have different people for everything just yet, at least start thinking about your organization this way. So that way you're covering the bases, but not all sort of necessarily in your own head, but thinking about it from what is this organization, my business, like how is it, what's necessary to function, and what are different areas of responsibility that I could potentially start to delegate out. And your name might be under each one of those things for now, but you can also start thinking ahead about, I'm actually not as good at this part. Maybe I need someone that's going to start owning this part that's better and more qualified. Or, this is an area that I might want to start outsourcing as a contractor. Why? Because, it's only part-time and it's not really my area of specialty. So you can start delegating or thinking ahead of what you should hire in that kind of org chart.
Yeah, I think, one of the most eye-opening things for me was not just seeing how many times you were listed on your own org chart, like I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. It's like you start to see, for me, and I don't like talk to myself as if I don't label myself a visual learner, but in this instance, it really helped me kind of open my eyes to where the bottlenecks would be. If this goes well, this is my org chart and it's on me. And I think this is why you see so many entrepreneurs, especially busy parents like us, they fall off in terms of consistency with their social media. They fall off in terms of their podcasts. It happened to me twice. Like started a podcast and I kind of fell off because I just, other things caught up and I couldn't sustain all of it because I was doing too much. So just the visual of seeing yourself do all these different things and like, okay, if I'm in charge of my content calendar and I'm in charge of producing the content and the ideas, even if I'm not editing it, but I'm doing my own scheduling and then I'm doing the fulfillment on my courses or on my coaching, that's going to pull me away from content creation unless I'm really good at repurposing and right? Like you get down this rabbit hole real quick and you go, oh my God, I need like a billion people. But you said something interesting too about investors, and you live in Austin. That's become quite a tech hub lately. What's the very first thing that companies that go raise venture capital do? They hire people.
Yep.
Sure, they throw more money at marketing, but they hire people. They hire sales reps. They build sales offices. Like they get people on the streets to be the sales arm of their thing because that's where the scale comes from. And I think if you look at it from that frame of mind, it's very, very similar for us.
Yes, exactly. And I've heard, and this is, coming from people's experiences, I understand that some people say, oh, well, you really shouldn't, quote, hire somebody in your business until you hit X amount of revenue in your business. And honestly, like, I think that that's backwards. And maybe some of it is because you and I both have worked in more of a startup, high growth, scaled growth realm. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've gotten like first round, seed round funding, and the investors who know business and how to grow business will say, none of that money can go to advertising. This goes 100% to hiring people. And then they'll tell you like which departments to hire. Why? Because you're making that resource start to multiply into so much more. It's invaluable to, and I'm glad that you brought up that just the reality check that happens when you start to see your name under all the things and you're like, wow, I do a lot, you know? And I get it. It's like you can have the meeting in your own head and that can feel convenient, but to be honest, it's actually, you know, you're creating a lot of stress, undue stress that's keeping you from being able to be, number one, your best self, the most present version of yourself, and then coming up with those genius ideas that are really going to start making that, like making the needle move in your business.
Yeah, I think that's really, you know, one of the key takeaways for me. It happened in my sales career too. Like you'd fill up your pipeline and then you start having client meetings and you close business and your pipeline dries up because you're not prospecting.
Yeah.
Let alone your family time, let alone the other stuff that matters to us, but it happens in our business. And so I would imagine that based on your experience, there's definitely many different ways that you can go out and do this. You gave one example of kind of the customer journey, which I think makes a lot of sense. What are some other examples of ways it might be variations of the same thing? Like is a nonprofit business the same as like a design agency, the same as a coaching business? How does the industry and the niche play into how we can structure these org charts?
Sure. I'm glad you're asking. And I know that a lot of people, it's that traditional sort of pyramid model of like org chart that people are so used to, you know, probably in your own careers, that's what you've seen. But, you know, one of the things I'd like to start with is say that, you know, we are in some of the most innovative age of all history and time. And we have more resources now than ever. And yet, like, so the question is why are you relying on an old framework or an old structure or an old formula that worked back then? Because if we're in this more fluid, rapid growth, rapid change, innovative society, think about what kind of org structure would actually support that. And so, you know, I love to look at organizational models that come out of even startup realms. Like if you look at Facebook, and you can do a quick search, but if you look at Facebook versus Google versus Amazon's model of like org chart, you'll see that they totally look different. Google's actually looks like a big circle with a center in the middle, and everything, you know, in that sense, it's more like they want all things to be happening in tandem, like all these little projects to help emergent growth and new ideas and innovation happen, but they want a centralized place where things are going to be reported to. But it's not top down. They want to give as much autonomy to like very able, very responsible, very creative people to create new things, right? And I know that everyone's heard of Google as like they have the 20% time of doing creativity, and a lot of like organizations have adopted some form of that. So there's that. Facebook likes to, you know, Facebookers will say like, oh, Zuck is like God. And that's not to be sacrilegious, but his org chart looks like that. And a different version of that is that from Google's is that you see these little clusters. If you look up his org charts, you see these little clusters, and what they are teams based on different things. And they usually are made up of, you know, maybe somebody from each, what you would call a department, right? So they might be a marketing person and a development person, a design person, et cetera, involved in this little pod. And they're all these little pods who are able to be like mini businesses. But then Zuck, you can never see him on an org chart because they call him God because what he does is he floats to different ones. And so, and he's doing that because also it's something that supports innovation, right? And I've seen that replicated in like, even in nonprofits, even larger nonprofits or IGOs are starting to adopt ways to structure their like organizations that don't create so much bureaucracy, right? Because like a lot of people like start to complain because they're like, oh, all this red tape, or I had to get approvals, or like, oh, now I have to go talk to this person because they had to make sure it's okay. And yes, you want that kind of continuity, but it slows a lot of things down. And it also creates a lot of not just friction, but inefficiency. And in a small business like ours, we have the opportunity to be super fast, super nimble, super creative. And so my thought is, what can be done to start at our stage of business to start to adopt like ideas that really support innovation and that kind of nimble, quick change ability. So I like to, coming from the tech startup world, I love Scrum. Scrum is like my baby. I love to teach it. I love to like support it. I love to integrate it into organizations. But Scrum also supports these little pods, right? It's like, how do you get to start to finish and start to learn from that very quickly, which would require hiring people who actually would start taking ownership and training them and setting them up for success to do that, instead of hiring what some people might, you can dub them as minions, right? People just to do stuff like I create an Asana task, just be a robot and do all those things. Instead, it's like, oh, but how can you, when you're creating an org chart like that, you start to realize, oh, I think I need to hire a different kind of person. And that will contribute to your growth.
I can see some of the listeners out there and attendees going, well, I mean, that's great for Facebook and Zuckerberg, and they've got all this business and all this money, and they've got products, they've got revenue. I'm sitting here with just basically an idea. Mm-hmm. I bought into the idea that I'll need org charts, at some point, but I really know I need to take this off my plate. So what are the things that we can be considering early on in our business as we design that org chart? Do we go hire that VA and take the task off our hand and then build an org chart later? Or after we've hired that person, what roles do we want them to take? Or do you build the org chart and then you go figure out where your gaps are and you hire that person first? Which there's a lot of different ways to do this kind of chicken and egg kind of question.
Yeah, for sure.
To do it for parentpreneurs like us.
I think that, the first thing that most people need when they're starting a business is just a little space. That space is, what I always suggest is like, where is going to be your highest ROI? The interesting thing is that sometimes, especially parents, don't think about where their time goes might actually be to some personal chores. So like one of the things I always like to ask is like, okay, are you going to, like, I want my clients, I tell them to do a time study. It's like, where does your time go 24 hours a day for the next 2 weeks? And then let's kind of decide, like, are these $10 tasks? Or are these $1,000 tasks? Or are these $100 tasks? And the irony is that they always forget, like, oh, cleaning the house, like picking up the laundry or like doing all this stuff. You guys, that is sometimes the easiest, lowest lying fruit place to get your time back. And I know sometimes for some people it's uncomfortable to create, to start paying somebody else to clean your house. Some people are just not on board with that, but do a little experiment, which is and I had to do this for myself too, because I'm a do everything girl, is that I had hired a housekeeper during that time. There was 3 hours and I just did work and I got so much done in those 3 hours and made some major progress in my business, those 3 hours. And for what that costed me it was worth all of it times 10, right? So create space. So first of all, I encourage you to think about where you can get your time back that you are spending your time that is not necessary. The second is to think about the tasks that are time consuming, but completely necessary for your business. I always say hire for ROI. And I'll tell you that one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people will hire for social media. And I think that is a really sad, big mistake, because you really are not getting much ROI from having someone post something on social media or like.
All they're doing is logging in for 10 minutes to post your, to schedule in Hootsuite or HubSpot or whatever for the next month and then billing you $300 for it.
Exactly. So please, for the love of everything that is good, do not go hire for like social media. I understand it can feel like a lot of busy work, but if you actually sit down and think about like, where am I going to get the money? Like, where am I going to actually start making revenue in my business or doing things that are going to really put me a leg above the rest? Is probably not social media. I have a video like on my Facebook page that talks about the 5 levels of dream hire. And it's really thinking about the kinds of activities that are out there, but also like what you need in your business. Because sometimes, you are not the expert of something that's really going to bring in a lot of money, and it's appropriate for you to hire a contractor. And so, to me, that is really more about that level 4. Dream hire level 5 would be someone that's working full time with you, that has that level of expertise. And it's interesting because if you think about the level of dream hire, what's appropriate for you, like what's appropriate not for you, but for your business, then it's an investment and not an expense, because you're expecting not just someone to take something off your plate. So you're just paying them $10, $30 an hour to like take care of something. It's more like you're going to pay them $10 to $50 or $100 an hour to do something that's going to bring back $1,000. That's where I would suggest, and it really depends on your business where you should invest first. But for sure, please don't give away just the little tasks that are busy work. Please try to invest in the right people that's going to help you make some greater strides in your business, but more importantly, revenue in your business.
Yeah. And I think, just to make that a little more actionable for people, like list out, like do an actual thing for a week. Like, where do you spend your time, and journal it and write it out, and you'll look at it after the end of the week and you'll be able to identify it. Wow, I spent a lot of time in traffic or at the grocery store or sorting and folding laundry. I mean, our house has a bunch of kids in it. Like we do laundry, like it's a job. Mm-hmm. We have a housekeeper, but it's only, twice a month. She comes every other Monday, and it's great. But like the prep to even get ready for the housekeeper is a job in and of itself, right? So there are things, I think you bring up a good point. I hadn't thought about this until a few months back when I heard it for the first time, but you don't have to hire help in your business, but you might need to hire help in your household. Yeah. That could be, it could be a service. You could have some of those done for you meals, ready and sent to you. So you could cut down on food prep. You could have somebody run to the grocery store. You could use DoorDash. You could use Instacart. Like there are so many things out there right now that will allow you to save that, 45 minutes to an hour, which doesn't sound like a lot, but go out and journal that, identify the opportunities that you have to outsource something. And if you're not ready for somebody in your business, or you don't think you are yet, or you want to dip your toe in the pond of outsourcing, go check out Instacart and then hire a housekeeper, and then maybe grab like a nanny one day a week during the summer. Like start doing those things and you'll be like, wow, I can get more done. I can focus more on my business. But also I've had plenty of friends and peers and clients who hire household help so that they can actually chill out. Like you don't always have to be working or doing something. Sometimes you just need to sit and know that the laundry is going to get done and hang out with your kids and just chill the hell out.
Yes, here. I think that we take that for granted, or like a massage. Like that's also an investment in yourself, because, I was telling some of my clients this weekend, I was saying, like, do you ever think about that when you're creating a business online like this? There are two things that drive it. Number one, it's your intellectual property, it's your expertise. And number two, it's energy. And your actual body is the source of that energy. So, we take better care of our cars sometimes than our own bodies. And if you are not in tip-top condition, you're not going to have the quality of energy or like the ability to have those brilliant thoughts or be clear-minded. So that you can function. So maybe that investment honestly is going to the gym. Maybe that investment is getting a massage. And it's not about being indulgent. It's about taking care of yourself so you can truly be 100%, present with both your work and your family.
Well, it's funny, I come from a sports background, played college and pro football, and like athletes take care of themselves. Their body is their product. It is their vehicle. And so that's what we do. But like, I can be totally honest. I've done both. Like I've been this world and I've been the athlete world. And the energy that I need now to be a good dad, to be there for my wife and to actually show up for my people is actually a hell of a lot harder than going out there and being a robot and catching and punting a football in 1.2 seconds. Like that's kind of mindless stuff that you can train your body to do. This is like, it's energy in every way. It's physical energy, it's emotional energy, it's mental energy, and it's getting enough sleep. Like it's so important. If you are your brand or if your IP is your product, you have to be able to show up, and you can't show up if you can't take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
So some of my clients, I know one of the reasons that they're afraid, I want to go through some of these reasons that people don't hire, or some of these stories that they tell themselves about why they're not ready. Some of my clients have been, I don't want to become a full-time manager, or I don't trust myself. I don't know anything about leadership or how to lead a team. What would you say to somebody out there who's resisting hiring based on that concern of just not being able to lead or not knowing how to manage?
That's a great question. And, I always say great leadership starts with great self-leadership. And oftentimes the reason why we have this sort of feeling when we're thinking about becoming a manager or becoming the leader is probably because you have some kind of baggage in the past where you have encountered bad managers and leaders, and you're sort of left with this like bitter aftertaste, and you're like, I don't want to become that. Or that you've been micromanaged and you don't want to micromanage, but how do you find people that you don't have to micromanage? You have all these things that come up for you. And so, this is probably not the most obvious response, but this is the kind of work I do with my clients, which is to start looking at how you actually, first of all, the stories that you've accumulated about what leadership is or what being a leader or a manager is, and differentiating to the whole idea of what it means to be a boss versus a manager and a leader. And I like to distinguish all three and call people to leadership. Because a boss is someone who just basically makes sure someone's doing something. They manage the stuff. A manager manages people. So they just make sure that the people are doing the stuff. But a leader is someone who is going to influence the mind and hearts of others to start doing something. So there's something different about having basically processing through your own stuff about, the experiences you've had or perceptions and stories you've created about what it means to be a leader, to work through that first. And then secondly is to start to distinguish that leadership isn't about being the responsible, meaning responsible in terms of to make someone do something, or that make somebody have to do the things that need to be done, which is very parental, if you think about it. A leader is someone who's acknowledging and cooperating with other human adults, other people who have a mind, a heart, skills, and a will to be able to do things. So if you think about it from if I hire the right people who understand my vision, who are aligned with this thing, who are going to respond by my influence to take responsibility to do things, I don't know. I think that's a lot less heavy than saying I need to manage people or I need to manage the tasks. And so I like to work through that process to help have this kind of mindset shift, and realize that, you are responsible as a leader for the covering, but you're not responsible for someone to do their job. And if that's what you're hiring for, I'm going to tell you that you're hiring the wrong way. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up the parental thing, because I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and it's obviously it's really easy for this audience because leadership is parenthood. Mm-hmm. Parenthood is leadership. That's what we do, right? There's the bossing around, right? Brush your teeth, get ready, we got to go. Yep. Where's your water bottle, whatever. But then there's the whole leadership and development and training people to, these are little people, but to become fully functional, nice, kind, hopefully happy people, right? So I think a lot of times you mentioned the stories that we tell ourselves and what leadership is, but also what does it require of you? And I think we have a lot of stories where they're well, I need to know how, I need to read a book, I need to take a course, I need to do something on how to lead people. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that can just be, checked at the door, and your team will tell you through their actions, indirectly or directly, whether you're a good leader or not. Mm-hmm. So you will figure it out. And there's only, like they say, there's only one way to get experience, and that's through actually doing. There's another couple of reasons that a lot of my clients don't hire. And one of them is just this fear of delegation. And I think as entrepreneurs in general, parentpreneurs, we have our babies, but our business is it's like our other little baby. And we don't want to give it up. We don't know how to give it up. We don't know how to delegate. We don't know what to delegate. And any delegation at all is just nobody can do it better than me. There's a lot of stuff under delegation. I'll let you pick off the probably the top 2 or 3 things that you would advise someone who's holding back or resisting hiring based on a fear of delegation.
Sure. Well, first of all, I always say that dream teams are made from the inside out. So already, if you're saying, oh, I don't know if there's if I'm ready to hire because I don't know if I'm ready to let go or delegate, then that again starts with what your beliefs are about the world around you, right? Is that, is anyone going to be good enough for you? Because if you've already decided no, then I'm sorry, you're not ever going to find someone that's going to be good enough for you. I think that we forget that, really, and here's another, I guess you can say maxim, is that you can only grow on the outside as big as you are on the inside. So if you are holding everything close and tight, that's not a very large way to live. You're not your own beliefs in your ecosystem, in your world. Like if you, yeah, sure. When you can have control over all the things and you're responsible for all the things, like it may seem like that great and little happy place, that your little ecosystem where, your kids can't mess it up, or your spouse can't come in and like make it their way, or you don't have to compromise. Great. But I'm going to ask you, are you creating a business for you to serve you? Or are you creating this business to serve others? And if your answer is the latter, then I'm going to ask, is then creating this ecosystem of safe, and no one can mess this up, or no one can meet my standards, is that the best way to serve more people? And so you have to think about, like, what are the beliefs that you have set up for yourself as you are creating this business? And yeah, if you're not ready to hire, and if you start trying to hire someone from that perspective of like, I don't think I can trust anyone, well, this is where, and I'm sure everyone here has probably experienced some kind of micromanagement in the past from their jobs. Well, guess what? Those very people who are micromanaging you were the very people that have that very thought of, I don't think this person's going to do good enough, or I'm going to hold on to perfectionism. So the question is like, is that the kind of environment you want to create? Like, and what's worth it? Like at the end, start with the end in mind. Are you creating this so that you can, have this great business as a hobby that's going to be your little your little cave that you can control and do it? Or is this really, truly something that you have a vision to impact more lives, grow, and start to truly like provide for your family in ways you've never been able to before, with the kind of freedom that you want? Then it's a trade-off. So it's like control and holding things tight and keep your universe small, or do you want to impact more lives and grow and have the kind of freedom and be able to provide for your family in the way that you always dreamed of? And between those choices is letting go of control.
But I would just challenge you guys, if you're sitting here going, well, I don't need that yet, or I don't want to get too big. That's one that I hear a lot, which underneath that is a belief that being big requires more of you, and you're not willing to do that. Right. So let's just stop and recognize that that's a belief about what you think growth is. But I would just challenge you all to think, like, if your vision can be fulfilled, if your vision for your business can be fulfilled by you, I would challenge you that your vision is not big enough. It's just, you cannot do anything significant, especially with all the competition and noise in this online digital ecosystem, by yourself. So if you haven't bought into the org chart thing yet, Teresa, before we let you go, like, what's the number one most important takeaway you want parentpreneurs to have as it relates to thinking about their org chart, thinking about who to bring into their company, designing their business the right way, however you want to phrase it? What's the number one thing, if they get nothing else from this session, that you want them to walk away with?
That it's not about you. That even when you're creating the org chart, it's not about supporting you. It's not about like building a business or finding people that will get you. This is all about your customers. This is all about your vision. And the more you are focused on the mission of like serving other people, the better quality person you're going to attract, because they'll be purpose aligned with you. And honestly, like that you'll take things less personally, right? And also, you won't hazard the mistake of hiring someone that you can have beers and mimosas with and be like besties with, but hire someone that's a great investment for your business, because this is what's best for your clients.
I love that. That's great stuff. I want to give you the opportunity to let people know where they can find you online if they want to follow your work.
Yeah, I love Instagram. That's my platform. I'm in my DMs. I'm at Daringly Great Leadership, and everything else is Daringly Great. So I'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM, the little voicemail button. That's like the best.
It is, but you know what? Every time I do it and I put it to my ear, I look down and it either sent like the first 1 second or nothing at all.
Oh.
So I'm like, I need to just use my AirPods or something.
Yeah. You have to hold the thing down too.
It's probably user error, let's be honest. I'm sure Instagram knows what they're doing. I just can't get it right. So
yeah,
there's that. Awesome. Great stuff, Teresa. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wait. Before you go, did you know that the most successful online businesses are built working in 90-day blocks, prioritizing only the big projects that truly drive revenue and fuel growth? If you want to make next quarter your best one yet, head over to nickmurphy.io/guide to grab your free copy of the 90-day Parentpreneur Planner. Thanks for listening. I'll see you back here on the next episode of the Parentpreneur Podcast.